So hi everybody, welcome back to our Court Card Couple series. We recently received our second request. This time it's on my channel rather than Ellie's channel, and it's from Misha50333. And you're saying your birthday is on June the 3rd, and your love interest is on August the 3rd. Which makes you a Gemini and he is a Leo.
Yes, and the cards that link to these astrological signs are the Knight of Swords, which is what you are, Gemini, and the King of Wands, or in the Thoth deck, the Prince of Wands. And this roughly covers Leo.
So, do you want to start us off?
Well, right off the bat, I would say that generally I think that air signs, Gemini is an air sign and fire signs, Leo is a fire sign, they generally go well together. So right off the bat, I think that that's good, it's promising. And I think that this relationship can be fun and passionate, and exciting. So I think that there definitely is some good potential there.
Yeah, I mean the reason for how exciting is because both of you are really active people. You can see by the visuals. You know, you as a Knight of Swords, you're constantly moving. You don't like staying still. Basically, you constantly want to be active. You want to go out all the time. You know, that sort of thing. And the Prince of Wands, being fire, he's active as well, but in a very different way. He moves really quickly, but he's also, being a fixed sign, he's a lot more stable in his actions. So, to compare and contrast, the Knight of Swords, he tends to start things on impulse a lot, but doesn't necessarily follow through on them. He sometimes loses momentum a lot in his projects, especially with Gemini. Generally, you have like really short attention spans. You know, you just like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, but Leo will actually give you that. So your potential love interest is good at sort of supporting you and saying, no, let's follow through with this. You know, so I think this is just a really good combination for doing things. You know, in general.
Yeah, before we started posting this video, we were discussing how they are as a match, and you had pointed that out before about how, yes, both are exciting characters, and both fiery, and airy as well. They both have that element of fire and air, so it's quite dynamic and swift-moving. But, it really resonated for me when you said that the Prince of Wands, or the King of Wands, however you want to call him, there's something more sturdy about him, which is beneficial, I think, for the Knight of Swords, a beneficial influence. That really resonated for me. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, just to explain how they're both airy and fiery. So the Knight of Swords, because knights are fire, so the Knight of Swords is the fire of air. So it represents how air is active. You know, how air is in action, whilst the Prince of Wands, or the King of Wands, is the airy part of fire. So how fire can be very, how should I put it, can be very adaptable, it can be very, how it thinks, in a way, you can say. You know, so it both, so again, so they both have the same element, but in sort of reversed in a way, and that's why they. I don't know if you agree with, but they almost like almost twin flame kind of relationship. No, if I were to use that terminology, it's like literally that kind of the opposites, but the same kind of thing.
That's a strong statement.
Probably a strong statement, but I think these two will feel like they're soulmates in some way because they're so matching. You know? Yeah,
they definitely match up in certain ways, and I think that adds to their compatibility. Yeah.
Anything else you like that?
Well, in the negative, just some possible cons. I feel that the King of Wands is generally more romantic than the Knight of Swords. Not that the Knight of Swords, not that Geminis don't have a romantic streak in them, but I would say generally that the King of Wands may potentially have more of a romantic sensibility about him, and that might possibly conflict with the Knight of Swords. But again, it depends on what kind of Gemini you are. So being actually the early part of Gemini, you may have some Taurus influence in you, and Taurus is ruled by Venus and is pleasure loving and those things. So that might add to your romanticism, possibly. So that may not be an issue. Again, it depends on what kind of Gemini you are individually. Geminis tend to have more of a free, free spirit about them, and may not want to, I feel that the King of Wands is granted, if he finds the right person, he's the marrying type, potentially. Yeah.
But I think I agree with you in the sense that they're both really romantic, I feel. But I think relatively speaking, probably the Leo, Prince of Wands is more romantic. Also, as you said about the Knight of Swords, how they may or may not like committing because they're free spirits, they like to be so independent. Whilst Leo, although I think they can have that playboyness about them at the same time.
That's true.
But I think being a fixed sign, they probably are more inclined to committing. So there can be that conflict. But again, that's all up to the individual.
They have both within them. But then I think perhaps there's the potential there. So if they feel so inspired, they'll definitely put a ring on it, so to speak. Not to get too corny on you.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, they both have that romantic and independent elements, but it's relatively speaking.
Relatively,
Knight of Swords is more independent, and he is more committed and romantic. But there is some common ground, So and that's where you have to sort of emphasize. And I think these guys are really very possible to meet that common ground. Because if a Geminis, the only issue really is a lot of the big reason why they're so uncommittable is because they get bored easily. But the Prince of Wands is a really exciting person.
Oh, good point. Yeah, definitely. That definitely resonates for me. I'm in agreement with that statement.
Well, I just want to point out one more good thing about these two is that, Geminis are very curious people, whereas the Prince of Wands, they like sort of being admired. That works out in their favor as well. It's like, so sorry, if you picked up. Sorry, thank you. So the Leo type person would be like, "Oh, look at me! How they would like to show off." It's like, "Look how great I am! Check it out.
Aren't I so great?"
So great. And then the Gemini would be like, "Oh, really? How? Show me." So there's that kind of
show
dynamic.
me your trophies.
Yeah, because Geminis are so curious, So that actually really works really well.
Yeah, and the Prince of Wands will be like, "What? You want me to talk about myself? Well, I will gladly oblige."
So,
I can see that.
But yeah, just hopefully the Knight of Swords can keep their attention in one spot and not be like, "Ooh," and then shift their attention to something else.
You mean hopefully the Prince of Wands can keep the Knight of Swords' attention?
Yeah. Otherwise they'll be darting all over the place, kind of thing. So that's where there can be differences, but between couples of the same two cards.
Another thing that I would like to add, and this is probably the last thing for me, one possible issue is that both are being so fiery can have a tendency towards being impulsive and impetuous. I feel more so for the Knight of Swords, but it depends what kind of King of Wands the person is. If he's more in his if he's more in the positive rather than the negative, or what I call in his shadow, if he's in more of the positive, then he's going to be more sturdy. But if he's more in the negative, then he may be more, prone towards being hot-tempered and acting impulsively. So it depends. That on the one hand, there's potential for passion there, obviously, but on the other hand, maybe things can get a little volatile, or maybe the two would like blow fuses together on others.
Yeah.
So that may not be such a great thing.
Yeah, just to like showcase, the volatility. I mean, yeah, there's no Earth in either of these two people, although the Leo is technically a fixed sign, but that just means he's more balanced, not necessarily grounded. But then there's also crap. I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah, well, there's also. Sorry, no, let me.
Oh,
see
that's the worst. That
That's
happens
the
to me more often because I'm a Gemini. Surprised to see it happening to you. All
Let's see,
right.
lack of stability, yada yada yada.
You were saying that he's more balanced, right? Because he's fixed, right?
Yeah, but there's no Earth. Yeah, a potential con, just because they're impulsive, they can probably get themselves into trouble in the long run. Maybe, especially for settled life, I guess, maybe, they're probably not suitable for it. But then again, if they want to move around, they can do it together. That's the point of this couple. So they won't be like a traditional, let's buy a house and settle in this town for the rest of our lives and raise our kids. They won't be that kind of couple. They'll be like, let's travel the world and dream big. And,
I can see that.
But thing is, with relationship in general, I think it's important to be able to make long-term plans, and that's where these two might be lacking. So I don't know, maybe take that into consideration, but at the same time, I guess, be yourself. There's that. Which is awesome. But yeah, overall, this just seems a very, very exciting couple to not just to be, but to also to observe. I think if I were to see a couple like this, I think there'd be a good inspiration to all of us that passion can be lasting and that sort of thing. I think they can be an inspiration to all couples. I feel.
You're making some strong statements about these couples. But yeah, I think, overall, I would say, there's some good energy there. Yeah.
Good positive energy, but... Okay, I think that's all for me.
Yeah, that's all. And so thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this and found this enlightening.
Yeah.
And if anyone else wants a reading, just leave a comment or a message for us, preferably with your birth date. Otherwise, your astrological sign and that of your love interest would do.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much, guys, and until next time.
Okay.
All right.